Hello and welcome to SpriteGuard Plays Homebrew. This is a game that I have been playing a lot recently, and I wanted to share it with you because it's been taking up a lot of my time and my thought, and I think that it has some really good features that I want to sort of highlight. It is very early on in development. I think they're considering it a pre-alpha stage, and so you can see the terrain is kind of the graphics are not really great, and there's going to be a lot that's sort of placeholder, that's not really finished, but what is here is worth checking out, and so I wanted to share it with you. So this is a vehicle construction sandbox game, which means that I can go into my inventory and I can put down a vehicle, and I can just place it in front of myself. And if I hadn't put it on a hill, I could get into it. So I want to be a little bit more careful this time. And then as it rolls up to me, I jump in, turn it on, power up the engine, and this is the default rocket racer. It's one of the vehicles that comes with the game, and I use it for getting around because it's not a huge map in terms of open world sandbox. If you're planning on flying around, you will hit the limits of the map eventually. It's not like Fuel where you can just get lost for days and days. But it is a pretty sizable map, and it can take quite some time to get from place to place. So I'm here on the airstrip, where I'm going to ditch my vehicle and watch it roll away, and then I'm going to pull out, and this is one of the things that I really love about this game that I really wanted to highlight, is that it's a pure sandbox. That it's a game where I can just say, okay, I want to play around with this plane now, pop it out, get in it, and start it up, and let's see if we can make this thing fly. So I'm going to power up the jet engines, and once we hit some speed, I'm going to try to... I'm not getting any lift here, so I am flying through the air once I get off the ground, but I don't seem to be moving up and down. So my tail fins are working correctly. So I'm not sure why exactly it is that I couldn't leave the ground. I've been having some difficulty getting airplanes of any kind working, and so it may just be a learning process, but this is maybe a good time to show you a little bit about how the build mode works. And so I can go in from being outside, I can go straight into the lab without any kind of transition time. The lab is actually a place on the map that you can go to, but I really like that I can just jump to it and start editing right away. So the tail fin was moving around properly, but it wasn't lifting me up at all. And I don't know whether I have not enough lift, or if the lift is in the wrong place. Now, I thought I was going fast enough, but another problem may have been that I just wasn't going fast enough. 3 fuel tanks might be a little bit excessive. I might want something that weighs a little bit less. So the first thing I'm going to try is just bringing it down to 1 fuel tank, and that will give us less flying time, though I haven't had any problems yet with running out of fuel, and so I think it's fine to try this experiment. So I just break that off. Part of my airplane was connected to that fuel tank. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to see if I can get out of this without saving my changes. And it looks like that's possible. Well, everything's falling apart now. So that was a mistake. I believe if I leave without baking, it will leave the plane the way it was before I made that change. And there it is, still has its tail and everything. So now we can go back and we can edit it. I love how smooth everything is. I love how there's no messing around. So I'm going to go into the moving parts around mode, and now I know that a bunch of important stuff is connected to this back fuel tank. So instead, I'm going to break off those two, and then just clean up and bake. And now everything should be the same, but I'm going to check just to make sure that this is connected up to the engine still. It will display my fuel. So you have this up here that lets you inspect the different variables for the different parts of the plane and decide whether or not you want to invert the flaps, which ones you want to connect to a seat. This is a multiplayer game, so you can have more than one seat, more than one person, and connect different parts of the controls to different parts of the seats. I haven't really explored around with larger vehicles yet, but they have everything in place for that. So with that change made, I'm going to bake and head back out into the field, and we can see if that made a substantial change. First, we're going to need to get back to the runway, though, which is a little bit tricky because I don't always know where it is. So I just have to hope that I'm getting better at finding my way around and hope that I don't crash into anything. This vehicle I use for just getting around to the different parts of the map because it's very fast, but it's a little bit tricky to control and it can flip over pretty easily. So I have to be a little bit careful. And there's almost no upper bound on the speed that this vehicle can go. So you can do some kind of silly things like going off of jumps at... see, I was going so fast that I didn't go off of that jump, I just hit it. So that's the kind of things that happen if you are not careful about how you drive those. I do want to hit that jump, though, show you a little bit of what this game plays like. There is a third-person mode. I don't see much... I haven't found much use for it. Occasionally it's nice to look around, but mostly I really like playing it in first person, and one of the things that I had kind of wanted from a sandbox building game was this first-person view. So that was something that immediately appealed to me about this game and why I decided to check it out. And it has really captured my attention. There's not a lot of parts in it yet, and there's still a lot being worked out, but there's so much that is here already that I think I'm going to be busy for a while. It's quite a learning curve, learning how to build airplanes especially. And then I also, after I try this out again, I want to show you some of the other things that I've been building. So I'm going to turn on the engine, I'm going to power it up, and I'm going to just hit it really fast and see if I can get any lift at all, and that just caused us to spin out. So I'm wondering if I have the controls backwards. I had the controls backwards. So now I'm not turning correctly, and the turning flaps are not working. So that's the next thing that I need to change. Now that took us kind of in some strange places, and that's just going to go off by itself. But now what I want to do is head back to someplace flat and show you some of the other stuff that I've built. And later on, probably, I will fix that plane and see if I can get it flying in a controlled flight. This version of the game that I'm playing, it updated very recently. This is the winter update that they've made seasonal. They added a little mini mission to open some Christmas presents, and they added some parts, and they made everything snowy, until just a few days ago, this game was all summer themed. It was grass and dirt. I don't feel a difference in the handling since the patch. I don't think that they changed it. The only handling change that I noticed is that some of the water is frozen over, and so you drive on it like ice instead of sinking into it. Which, I don't know. There are some little ponds inside of this crater, and then when you go outside of the crater, over that wall over there, you can get into some bigger water where you can play around with boats. I haven't really been that interested in building boats yet, so that's not something I have explored very much. Right now I am mostly just trying to get some planes off the ground, and also play around with some silly physics stuff. I'm heading kind of back to the base because there's a flat spot very close to the base, and I figure this is as good a time as ever to show you where that base where I was doing that building actually was, and it's that dome right there. And this is a nice flat area that is right next to the base, and so I use it for launching balloons and rockets. So I've got this rocket that I've been working on, and I have set it up so that I can drop it down and it will stand up just fine. And then it's a little bit too tall to just climb into the seat. I have to jump and sort of hope that I'm close enough. So it takes a little bit of timing and trickery. So I have this staged out. I'm going to have to check the controls. So the detach is space, and the throttle is left shift. So this is a two-stage rocket, and then I've added these fins, which are currently tilted at 10 degrees to give it a spin, because I was having trouble keeping this rocket upright. So I'm going to turn it on and hit the first stage, and that will get us spinning quite fast. And then I can hit the second stage, and hopefully that will continue. We're out of fuel now, and we're spinning quite a lot, but jumping out will actually stop our spinning, and now we are up in the skybox. I've had some kind of mixed results from this point on. I've had some times where I fell straight back down to Earth and it was fine, and sometimes where I got stuck up here for long enough that I thought maybe I was not actually falling at all. So okay, it looks like we are falling, and we're going to fall into the water. So there is liquid water there. So not all of the water in this area has been frozen in the update, which is good because otherwise we wouldn't be able to try out boats. So that's everything that I wanted to show you for this episode. I'm definitely going to be revisiting this game in the future. I really enjoy it, and with early access, it's always a little bit of a gamble whether or not the game is going to get developed further. The developers for this game seem pretty committed. I don't know a lot yet. Their social media presence hasn't been the strongest, but they have been pushing updates, and sort of the fundamental test in any early access game is if you bought it right now and there was never an update after that, would you have spent your money well? And I feel like I have already spent my money well. I'm going to spend a lot of hours, already have spent a few hours building things in this game, and I expect to spend many more. This is really enjoyable, and the freedom that it gives you in the sandbox and in the construction, which I'll probably show you next time, are things that I really appreciate. I have been waiting for a while for someone to make a game that was just pure sandbox like this. And I've seen a lot of things that got close, but I have not seen something that is as pure as this game. And so I'm really pleased with it. So I'm going to wrap it up there. Thank you very much for watching, and have a great rest of your day.